Welcome to Understanding Men's Emotions, the complete guide, written and published by Maxwell Reed from Attraction Unlocked. When it comes to relationships, emotions are often the unspoken language that define connection and understanding. Yet, when it comes to men, this emotional language can feel like a mystery, complex, uncharted, and often misinterpreted. Why do men sometimes seem so guarded? Why do they retreat into silence instead of expressing what's on their mind? This audiobook was created to answer those questions and more, giving you a deeper understanding of the emotional world of men and how it shapes their relationships. Understanding men's emotions isn't just about improving communication, it's about unlocking a new level of intimacy, trust, and partnership. When you understand what drives men emotionally, you can build stronger, healthier relationships. You'll learn why men often process emotions differently and how to navigate these differences with empathy and clarity. By the end of this guide, you'll have the tools to foster deeper emotional connections and create a space where men feel safe to share their true selves. Over the coming chapters, we'll explore why societal expectations often teach men to suppress emotions and how this affects their behavior in relationships. We'll uncover common emotional triggers, offer practical strategies for communication, and show you how to recognize the subtle, often overlooked ways men express their feelings. This audiobook isn't just about identifying challenges, it's about finding solutions and building a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. To illustrate the importance of this journey, let me share a story about Emily and Jake. Emily loved Jake deeply, but there was always a wall between them she couldn't quite understand. Jake was kind, caring, and attentive, but when it came to expressing his emotions, he would shut down. Arguments often ended with Jake retreating, leaving Emily feeling frustrated and alone. One day, after another argument, Emily decided to try a different approach. Instead of pressing Jake to talk, she simply sat beside him and said, "I'm here when you're ready." That moment was a turning point for them. Jake, feeling no pressure, finally opened up about his struggles with vulnerability and how he had been raised to believe that showing emotions was a sign of weakness. For the first time, Emily saw the depth of Jake's feelings and the fears that had kept him from expressing them. Their relationship grew stronger because Emily had created a safe space for Jake to share his emotions without judgment. This story is a powerful reminder that understanding men's emotions isn't about fixing them, it's about supporting them. Men, like anyone, want to feel seen and valued for who they are beneath the surface. By learning how to decode their emotional cues and respond with empathy, you can transform not only your relationship but also how men view their own emotional landscape. So, are you ready to embark on this journey? Together, we'll break down the barriers that often keep men from expressing their emotions and discover the tools to build deeper, more meaningful connections. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Emotional Blueprint of Men. Understanding men's emotions starts with recognizing how societal expectations have shaped the way they express themselves. From a young age, boys are often taught to suppress their feelings, with phrases like, "man up," or "boys don't cry," reinforcing the idea that vulnerability is a weakness. Over time, these messages become deeply ingrained, creating a blueprint for how men navigate their emotional lives. While they experience the full spectrum of emotions, societal norms can make it difficult for them to express those feelings openly, leading to misunderstandings and missed opportunities for connection. One of the biggest myths about men is that they are less emotional than women. This couldn't be further from the truth. Men feel deeply, but they've often been conditioned to prioritize control over expression. Anger, for instance, is seen as an acceptable emotion because it's associated with strength, while sadness or fear might be hidden because they're perceived as signs of vulnerability. This emotional suppression doesn't mean men are unfeeling. It means they've been taught to filter their emotions through a lens of what's considered acceptable for their gender. Another misconception is that men are emotionally detached. In reality, many men are intensely connected to their emotions but may not have the tools or language to articulate them. This disconnect between feeling and expressing can lead to frustration, not only for the men themselves but also for their partners. It's important to understand that this isn't a lack of willingness but rather a lack of practice. Emotional expression isn't something many men are encouraged to develop, leaving them unsure of how to navigate complex feelings. Let's look at some of the key emotions men often struggle to express. Vulnerability is one of the most challenging. Admitting fears, insecurities, or weaknesses goes against the traditional image of masculinity that society glorifies. This struggle often leads to emotional withdrawal or defensive behavior, creating distance in relationships. Similarly, sadness can be difficult for men to share, as it's often associated with helplessness or failure. Instead of opening up, many men internalize their sadness, which can manifest as irritability, distraction, or even physical symptoms like fatigue. Guilt and shame are also emotions that many men wrestle with silently. Whether it's about past mistakes, perceived inadequacies, or unmet expectations, these feelings can weigh heavily but remain unspoken. Men might feel they're protecting their partners by keeping these emotions to themselves, not realizing that their silence can create confusion and emotional barriers. To illustrate how these dynamics play out, let me share the story of Daniel. Daniel grew up in a family where emotions weren't discussed. His father rarely showed affection, and whenever Daniel cried as a child, he was told to be strong. As an adult, Daniel carried this conditioning into his relationships. He loved his partner, Sophie, but every time they had an emotional conversation, Daniel would shut down. He wasn't trying to be distant, he simply didn't know how to articulate his feelings. This pattern caused tension between them. Sophie often felt like Daniel didn't care, while Daniel felt misunderstood. One day, after an argument, Sophie asked him a simple question. "What's going on inside your head?" Instead of pressing him for answers, she waited patiently. Daniel hesitated but eventually admitted that he felt overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't explain. That moment was a turning point. By opening up, even just a little, Daniel started to break the cycle of emotional repression. Sophie's understanding and patience gave him the space to explore his feelings without fear of judgment. Daniel's story highlights an important truth. Men aren't unwilling to share their emotions. They often just need the right environment and encouragement to do so. Breaking free from societal expectations isn't easy, but it's possible with support and practice. As we move forward, remember that understanding men's emotional blueprint isn't about labeling or fixing them. It's about creating awareness of the cultural and personal factors that influence their behavior. Men have the same emotional depth as anyone else, but their expression is often filtered through years of conditioning. By recognizing these patterns and offering empathy, you can foster stronger, more authentic connections. The journey to understanding men's emotions starts with seeing the world through their eyes, and helping them find the freedom to express what's truly in their hearts. Chapter 2. Why Men Struggle to Open Up. Understanding why men often struggle to open up emotionally requires us to look at the powerful forces that shape their lives. From childhood, many boys are exposed to cultural and societal norms that teach them to suppress their emotions. These expectations are not just imposed by parents or peers, they are reinforced by media, institutions, and the world around them. The message is clear. Strength means silence, vulnerability means weakness, and expressing emotions is not what real men do. Over time, these lessons become internalized, creating a deep reluctance to share their feelings openly. Upbringing plays a significant role in this dynamic. Many men grow up in environments where emotional expression is either discouraged or ignored. Boys who cry are often told to man up or stop acting like a baby. Fathers, themselves products of the same conditioning, may struggle to model emotional openness. This cycle repeats, leaving many men with a limited emotional vocabulary and a belief that they must carry their burdens alone. Even in families that encourage communication, cultural norms can subtly influence boys to prioritize stoicism over vulnerability. Fear of vulnerability is another major barrier. For men, opening up emotionally can feel like stepping into uncharted territory. There's a risk of being misunderstood, judged, or even rejected. Vulnerability requires a level of trust that many men find difficult to extend, especially if they've been hurt in the past. For some, even minor rejections during formative years, like being teased for crying or mocked for sharing their feelings, can leave lasting scars. These experiences teach men that being vulnerable is risky, and it's safer to keep their emotions hidden. One of the most misunderstood aspects of men's emotional lives is the fix-it mentality. Men are often conditioned to believe that their value lies in solving problems. When faced with an emotional situation, their instinct is to find a solution rather than delve into the feelings behind it. This approach can make it difficult for men to engage in emotional sharing. They may feel that discussing their feelings serves no practical purpose or worry that it will expose them as incapable of handling their challenges. While this mindset can be useful in certain situations, it creates a significant barrier to emotional connection. Let's bring these ideas to life with the story of Anna and Greg. Anna and Greg had been together for 3 years, and while their relationship was strong, Anna often felt a distance between them. Greg was supportive and caring, but when it came to emotions, he seemed closed off. Whenever Anna tried to discuss her feelings or ask about his, Greg would deflect or offer practical solutions instead of engaging with the emotions behind the issue. For Anna, this was frustrating. She didn't need Greg to solve her problems, she needed him to listen and understand. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Anna confided in Greg about her anxieties at work. As usual, Greg immediately jumped in with advice. "Why don't you just talk to your boss? Or maybe you should look for a new job." Feeling unheard, Anna took a different approach. She gently said, "Greg, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to hear me out." Her honesty caught him off guard, but it also opened a door. Anna realized that Greg's behavior wasn't about a lack of care, it was about a lack of understanding. Over time, she began creating a safe space for him to explore his own emotions. Instead of pushing him to talk, she used open-ended questions and waited patiently for his responses. She reassured him that she wouldn't judge or criticize what he shared. Slowly, Greg started to open up about his own fears and insecurities, including his struggles with feeling like he always had to have the answers. This shift transformed their relationship, bringing them closer than ever. Anna and Greg's story illustrates an essential truth. Men often need encouragement and reassurance to feel safe opening up. This doesn't mean forcing them to share before they're ready, but rather creating an environment where vulnerability is welcomed and respected. Small changes, like validating their feelings instead of offering solutions or expressing gratitude when they do open up, can make a significant difference. The key to helping men overcome these barriers is understanding their perspective. For many men, emotional expression feels risky because it goes against everything they've been taught about strength and masculinity. Encouraging them to share requires patience, empathy, and a willingness to meet them where they are. It's not about changing who they are, it's about showing them that vulnerability can coexist with strength. As we move forward, remember that the struggle to open up isn't about a lack of emotion, it's about fear, conditioning, and habit. By addressing these barriers with understanding and care, you can help the men in your life build the confidence to express themselves authentically. This isn't just beneficial for your relationships, it's transformative for them, too, as they begin to see vulnerability not as a weakness but as a path to deeper connection and self-discovery. If you're enjoying this audiobook so far, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. That means a lot to us. Now let's get back to it. Chapter 3. Emotional Triggers and Stress Points. Understanding the emotional triggers and stress points that men face is key to decoding their behavior and supporting them effectively. While men experience a range of emotions, certain situations tend to provoke strong responses, often tied to deeply ingrained values like success, stability, and self-worth. 3 of the most common triggers are work, relationships, and self-esteem, each of which can play a significant role in how men process and express their emotions. Work is a major emotional trigger for many men. Society often links a man's value to his professional achievements, making work a primary source of both pride and pressure. When things go well, like landing a promotion or achieving a milestone, it can boost confidence and fulfillment. But setbacks, such as job loss, workplace conflicts, or missed goals, can strike at the core of a man's identity. This connection between work and self-worth can make professional stress feel intensely personal, leading to frustration, anxiety, or withdrawal. Relationships are another key emotional trigger. While men may not always express their feelings openly, their emotional well-being is deeply connected to their personal connections. Conflicts, misunderstandings, or unmet needs in relationships can leave men feeling hurt or rejected, even if they don't articulate it. Men often struggle to process these emotions in the moment, which can lead to delayed reactions like irritability, silence, or avoidance. Self-esteem ties closely to both work and relationships, serving as the foundation for how men view themselves. Men with high self-esteem are more likely to navigate challenges with resilience, while those with lower self-esteem may struggle to manage stress or setbacks. Criticism, failure, or perceived inadequacy can hit hard, particularly if a man feels he's not meeting the expectations of those around him. One of the reasons men process stress differently than women is due to societal conditioning and biological differences. While women are often encouraged to talk about their feelings as a way of coping, men are more likely to internalize stress. They may view seeking help or sharing their struggles as a sign of weakness, leading them to bottle up their emotions. This approach often creates a cycle where unaddressed stress accumulates, eventually manifesting as anger, withdrawal, or physical symptoms like headaches or fatigue. Men also tend to approach stress with a problem-solving mindset. Instead of focusing on the emotional impact of a situation, they prioritize finding a solution. While this approach can be effective in certain scenarios, it often overlooks the importance of processing emotions. For example, a man facing workplace stress might throw himself into solving the immediate issue, working longer hours or taking on more tasks, without addressing the underlying anxiety or frustration he feels. This can lead to burnout or emotional detachment, as the unresolved feelings continue to build. Recognizing the signs of emotional overwhelm in men is crucial for supporting them. These signs are often subtle but significant. Irritability, unexplained fatigue, or a sudden lack of interest in hobbies or activities can indicate that a man is struggling emotionally. Physical symptoms, like tension headaches, changes in appetite, or trouble sleeping, are also common indicators of stress. If a man becomes unusually quiet or withdrawn, it may be a sign that he's feeling overwhelmed and unsure how to articulate his emotions. Let's look at the story of Alex, a man who learned to navigate emotional triggers after facing workplace burnout. Alex was a dedicated professional, proud of his ability to excel under pressure. He thrived on challenges and had always been the go-to person for solving problems at his job. But over time, the demands of his role began to take a toll. Late nights, constant deadlines, and a lack of recognition left him feeling drained and unappreciated. Instead of addressing his feelings, Alex pushed harder, convinced that working more would solve his problems. He became irritable at home, snapping at his partner over minor issues. His sleep suffered, and he stopped enjoying the activities that used to bring him peace. Alex didn't realize it, but he was experiencing emotional overwhelm. His attempt to manage stress by ignoring his emotions only worsened the situation. Things came to a head when Alex's partner, Maria, gently confronted him. She pointed out the changes in his behavior and expressed her concern without placing blame. Initially defensive, Alex eventually admitted that he felt like he was failing, at work, at home, and even in taking care of himself. This moment of vulnerability was a turning point. With Maria's support, Alex began to reflect on his emotional triggers and sought help from a therapist to learn healthier ways to cope. Through therapy, Alex discovered the importance of acknowledging his feelings instead of burying them. He learned to set boundaries at work, prioritize self-care, and communicate his needs more effectively. By addressing his stress head-on, Alex not only regained control over his emotions but also strengthened his relationship with Maria. His journey is a powerful reminder that men can learn to balance their emotions, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Understanding and addressing emotional triggers in men starts with empathy and patience. Encourage them to share their feelings without judgment or pressure. Validate their experiences and remind them that seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness. Help them recognize the importance of processing emotions, not just solving problems. Emotional triggers and stress points are a natural part of life, but they don't have to define a man's experience. By fostering awareness and creating safe spaces for emotional expression, you can help the men in your life navigate these challenges with resilience and confidence. The goal isn't to eliminate stress, it's to equip men with the tools to manage it in healthy, constructive ways that strengthen their relationships and improve their overall well-being. Chapter 4. The Role of Communication in Emotional Connection. Effective communication is the foundation of any strong relationship, especially when it comes to understanding men's emotions. For many men, expressing feelings can feel foreign or uncomfortable, not because they lack emotions, but because they may not have the tools or experience to articulate them. Learning how to communicate with men about emotions without overwhelming them is essential for building trust and fostering a deeper connection. When talking to men about emotions, timing and approach matter. Jumping into heavy emotional discussions at the wrong moment can feel overwhelming or confrontational. Instead, look for opportunities when the mood is relaxed and the environment is calm. Casual settings, like during a walk, while driving, or over a quiet dinner, can provide a sense of safety that encourages openness. Starting with open-ended questions that don't demand immediate or deep responses is a great way to ease into emotional topics. For example, instead of asking, "Why don't you ever talk about your feelings?" try something gentler like, "What's been on your mind lately?" Patience is crucial. Many men need time to process their emotions before they feel ready to discuss them. If he hesitates, don't push for answers. Instead, let him know you're there when he's ready to talk. Reassurance goes a long way in creating a safe space for communication. Saying something like, "I'm here for you, and you don't have to have everything figured out right now," can alleviate the pressure he might feel. Meaningful conversations require more than just asking the right questions. They depend on how well you listen. Active listening is one of the most powerful tools for emotional connection. It involves giving your full attention, maintaining eye contact, and responding in ways that show you're truly engaged. Reflective listening, repeating back or paraphrasing what he's said, can also help him feel understood. For example, if he shares that he's stressed about work, you might respond, "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by everything on your plate. Is that right?" Nonverbal communication is just as important as spoken words. Men often express emotions through actions rather than speech, so it's essential to pay attention to silent signals. Notice his body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. If he's unusually quiet, tense, or withdrawn, it might indicate that something is bothering him. Instead of jumping to conclusions, approach gently with observations like, "I've noticed you seem a little off today. Is everything okay?" This opens the door for him to share without feeling interrogated. Creating emotional connection isn't about having all the answers, it's about being present. Many men value practical support over elaborate discussions. Sometimes, just sitting together in silence or offering a reassuring touch can communicate more than words ever could. Small actions, like making his favorite meal after a tough day or leaving a thoughtful note, show that you're attuned to his emotional state even if he hasn't verbalized it. To illustrate the transformative power of communication, let's look at the story of Megan and David. Megan loved David deeply, but she often felt disconnected when it came to emotions. David was kind and reliable, but whenever Megan brought up emotional topics, he would retreat into silence or change the subject. It wasn't that he didn't care, David simply didn't know how to express himself in those moments. Frustrated but determined, Megan decided to approach things differently. Instead of trying to initiate long, emotional conversations, she started small. She would share her own feelings first, not to put pressure on David to reciprocate, but to model vulnerability. Over time, David began to open up in small ways, sharing bits and pieces of his thoughts and feelings. One evening, after a stressful day at work, David came home visibly upset. Instead of asking what was wrong right away, Megan let him settle in, offering a quiet space. After a while, she gently asked, "Want to talk about it?" David hesitated but eventually opened up about a conflict with a colleague that had been weighing on him. Megan listened without interrupting, resisting the urge to offer solutions. When he finished, she said, "That sounds really tough. I'm sorry you're dealing with that." That simple acknowledgement made David feel validated and understood. Over time, their communication improved dramatically. Megan's patience and active listening helped David feel safe sharing his emotions, and David's willingness to try opened the door for deeper emotional connection. Their relationship grew stronger because they learned how to meet each other halfway. David and Megan's story highlights the importance of creating a judgment-free zone for communication. Men often need reassurance that expressing vulnerability won't lead to criticism or rejection. The more you show understanding and empathy, the easier it becomes for them to open up. Practical tips for building meaningful conversations include asking thoughtful, open-ended questions, practicing active listening, and being patient with the process. Pay attention to nonverbal cues and don't underestimate the power of silence. Sometimes, just being present without words can create a stronger connection than any conversation. Remember, communication isn't about fixing the other person or making them conform to your style. It's about understanding their perspective and finding common ground. By approaching conversations with empathy, curiosity, and a genuine desire to connect, you create a foundation of trust that strengthens emotional bonds. When men feel safe to express themselves, relationships naturally flourish. Chapter 5. Building emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is the invisible thread that weaves trust, closeness, and love into a relationship. For men, this kind of connection can sometimes feel elusive, not because they don't crave it, but because they may approach it differently than women. While women often view emotional intimacy as a natural part of a relationship, men may see it as something that requires vulnerability, a space they've been conditioned to approach cautiously. Understanding these differences is key to building a relationship that thrives on trust and mutual respect. For men, emotional intimacy isn't always about sharing every thought or feeling. Instead, it's often rooted in feeling respected, valued, and safe. Men tend to view actions and shared experiences as expressions of intimacy, while women might prioritize verbal communication and emotional sharing. This difference doesn't mean men are less emotionally invested, it simply highlights their unique way of expressing and experiencing closeness. Recognizing and respecting this distinction is a vital first step in fostering emotional intimacy. Building trust is the foundation of emotional intimacy. Trust is created through consistency, reliability, and open communication. When a man feels he can count on his partner to listen without judgment or criticism, he's more likely to let his guard down. Similarly, being dependable, following through on promises and being present when it matters, reinforces a sense of security. Trust isn't built overnight, but small, consistent actions over time create a safe space for deeper emotional connections. Closeness in a relationship also requires vulnerability. Vulnerability isn't about exposing every fear or insecurity at once. It's about sharing pieces of yourself gradually, at a pace that feels comfortable. This might mean talking about past experiences, admitting doubts, or expressing hopes for the future. Each moment of vulnerability invites the other person to do the same, creating a dynamic of mutual understanding. For men, this process often requires patience and reassurance. Encouraging them to share without pressure or expectations allows intimacy to grow organically. One powerful way to deepen emotional intimacy is through active appreciation. Expressing gratitude for your partner's actions, qualities, and efforts strengthens the bond between you. Men, in particular, often feel validated through acknowledgement of their contributions, whether it's fixing something around the house, providing support during a tough time, or simply being present. These expressions of appreciation reinforce their sense of value in the relationship and encourage further emotional openness. Emotional intimacy also strengthens physical and romantic bonds. When two people feel emotionally connected, their physical connection becomes more meaningful. Intimacy in this sense isn't just about physical affection, it's about the underlying emotional energy that makes those moments special. A hug, a touch, or even prolonged eye contact can communicate love and trust more powerfully than words. For men, feeling emotionally secure often enhances their ability to express themselves physically, creating a cycle where emotional and physical closeness reinforce one another. Let's look at the story of Rachel and Sam, a couple who rediscovered emotional intimacy after years of feeling disconnected. Rachel loved Sam deeply, but over time, their conversations had become surface level, revolving around work, chores, and daily routines. Rachel missed the deeper connection they once shared but didn't know how to bridge the gap. Sam, on the other hand, felt that Rachel didn't understand the pressures he faced, and he struggled to articulate his feelings. One evening, after a particularly quiet dinner, Rachel decided to try a different approach. She shared a story from her childhood about a fear she'd recently overcome and how it still lingered in subtle ways. It was a small, vulnerable moment, but it opened the door for Sam. Instead of responding with advice, he shared a similar fear he had never spoken about before. That moment of mutual vulnerability sparked a conversation that lasted hours, as they peeled back layers of themselves they hadn't revealed in years. Encouraged by this breakthrough, Rachel and Sam made a habit of setting aside time each week to talk without distractions. They practiced active listening, reflecting on what the other shared without interrupting or jumping to conclusions. Over time, these small acts of vulnerability and attention deepened their emotional connection, reigniting both their romantic and physical bond. They realized that the key to intimacy wasn't grand gestures, it was the simple act of being fully present for each other. Rachel and Sam's story illustrates the transformative power of emotional intimacy. By creating a space where both partners felt safe to share, they were able to rebuild their connection and bring new energy into their relationship. Emotional intimacy doesn't require perfection or constant vulnerability. It's about showing up, listening, and being willing to grow together. Building emotional intimacy takes effort, but the rewards are profound. It creates a foundation of trust, a sense of partnership, and a bond that can weather life's challenges. For men, feeling understood and valued opens the door to deeper emotional expression, which strengthens the entire relationship. When you invest in emotional intimacy, you're not just enhancing your connection, you're creating a love that lasts. Chapter 6. The Role of Emotional Intelligence in Men. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to understand, manage, and express emotions effectively while also recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others. It's a skill that directly impacts the quality of relationships, personal fulfillment, and overall well-being. For men, developing emotional intelligence can be transformative, helping them navigate the complexities of relationships with greater understanding and connection. While EQ might seem like an abstract concept, it's a practical and learnable skill that can profoundly improve how men communicate, connect, and resolve conflicts. At its core, emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness, the ability to identify and understand your own emotions. For many men, this is a challenging step. They may recognize that they're angry, stressed, or frustrated but struggle to pinpoint the deeper emotions driving these feelings. For example, anger might mask underlying fear or insecurity. Developing self-awareness involves taking a moment to pause and reflect on what you're feeling and why. This practice not only helps men understand themselves better but also enables them to respond to situations more thoughtfully. Self-regulation is another critical aspect of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to manage emotional responses in a constructive way, even in challenging situations. For men, this means finding ways to express emotions without resorting to avoidance, aggression, or withdrawal. Self-regulation doesn't mean suppressing emotions, it's about channeling them productively. Techniques like deep breathing, pausing before reacting, or stepping away from a heated situation to reflect can make a significant difference in how emotions are handled. Empathy is perhaps the most outward-facing component of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, creating a bridge of understanding and connection. For men, practicing empathy can shift the dynamic in relationships, showing partners, friends, or family members that their emotions are valued and respected. Empathy involves active listening, validating others' feelings, and putting yourself in their shoes without judgment or immediate solutions. The connection between self-awareness and emotional expression is vital in this process. When men become more attuned to their emotions, they can express them in a way that fosters connection rather than conflict. This might mean saying, "I feel hurt because I didn't feel included," instead of bottling up feelings or lashing out. Clear and honest emotional expression reduces misunderstandings and creates opportunities for deeper connection. It's a skill that takes practice but pays off in more meaningful and harmonious relationships. Let's look at the story of Ryan, a man who used emotional intelligence to repair a strained relationship. Ryan had always considered himself logical and level-headed, but his relationship with his partner, Lily, was struggling. Lily often accused him of being emotionally distant, which frustrated Ryan because he didn't understand what she wanted. He thought he was being supportive by offering solutions to her problems, but Lily felt unheard and disconnected. After yet another argument, Ryan decided to take a step back and reflect. He realized that while he cared deeply for Lily, he wasn't showing it in a way that resonated with her. Curious about how to improve, Ryan started reading about emotional intelligence. The concept of empathy struck a chord with him. He realized that instead of trying to fix Lily's problems, he needed to listen and acknowledge her feelings. The next time Lily expressed frustration about work, Ryan resisted the urge to jump in with advice. Instead, he said, "That sounds really stressful. I can see why you're feeling upset." To his surprise, Lily's demeanor softened. She thanked him for listening, and for the first time in a long while, they had a meaningful conversation without tension. This small change marked the beginning of a shift in their relationship. Ryan didn't stop there. He also began journaling to explore his own emotions, something he'd never done before. This practice helped him identify patterns in his behavior and recognize triggers that led to defensiveness or withdrawal. As his self-awareness grew, Ryan found it easier to communicate his feelings to Lily, whether it was frustration after a long day or gratitude for her support. Over time, Ryan's efforts to develop emotional intelligence transformed their relationship. Lily felt more connected to him, and Ryan discovered a deeper sense of fulfillment in being able to express himself authentically. Their bond grew stronger because they were no longer navigating their emotions in isolation. They were working together to understand and support each other. Ryan's story highlights the practical benefits of emotional intelligence. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Small, intentional changes, like listening more attentively or pausing to reflect before reacting, can lead to significant improvements in how men relate to others and themselves. Developing emotional intelligence is a journey, not a destination. For men, it begins with self-awareness and extends into empathy, communication, and self-regulation. These skills not only improve relationships but also enhance overall emotional well-being. When men take the time to understand and manage their emotions, they unlock the potential for deeper connections, less conflict, and greater harmony in every area of their lives. The beauty of emotional intelligence is that it's accessible to everyone. It's not about changing who you are but about learning how to navigate emotions in a way that fosters growth and connection. For men, embracing EQ can open doors to stronger relationships and a more fulfilling life. It's a skill worth cultivating, and the rewards are undeniable. Chapter 7. Overcoming Emotional Barriers. For many men, the journey to emotional openness is hindered by internal and external barriers that feel deeply entrenched. These barriers often stem from societal expectations, personal experiences, and the stigma around vulnerability. While breaking through these walls isn't easy, it is possible, and the rewards of greater emotional freedom and stronger relationships make the effort worthwhile. One of the most significant internal barriers is shame. Men are often conditioned to believe that showing emotions is a sign of weakness. From a young age, they are bombarded with messages that equate strength with stoicism and vulnerability with failure. This can create a deep sense of embarrassment or guilt around expressing feelings. Shame becomes a silent enemy, convincing men that opening up will lead to rejection, judgment, or ridicule. Another internal barrier is the fear of losing control. Emotions can feel unpredictable, and for men who have been taught to prize composure and stability, this unpredictability can be intimidating. They may worry that once they let their guard down, they won't be able to regain their footing. This fear often leads to avoidance, as it feels safer to suppress emotions than to face the uncertainty of sharing them. External barriers are equally challenging. Societal pressures to conform to traditional notions of masculinity reinforce the idea that men should tough it out, rather than seek support. Media and cultural narratives often celebrate men who remain stoic in the face of adversity, while those who express vulnerability are portrayed as weak or overly sensitive. These external expectations create a cycle that discourages men from exploring their emotional depth. Breaking through these barriers requires both internal reflection and external support. The first step is identifying the beliefs and fears that are holding men back. This involves asking questions like, "What am I afraid will happen if I express my emotions?" Or, "Where did I learn that vulnerability is a weakness?" Recognizing the roots of these beliefs is essential for challenging and replacing them with healthier perspectives. Overcoming shame starts with reframing vulnerability as strength rather than weakness. Sharing emotions requires courage, and men who open up are not exposing flaws but demonstrating self-awareness and resilience. This shift in mindset can be transformative, helping men see emotional expression as a tool for growth rather than a risk of failure. Celebrating vulnerability as an act of bravery instead of a liability is a crucial step toward emotional freedom. External pressures, like societal expectations, are harder to control but can be countered by surrounding oneself with supportive people. Friends, partners, and even mentors who value emotional openness create an environment where men feel safe to express themselves. Encouraging conversations that normalize vulnerability helps men see that they're not alone in their struggles. Knowing that others have faced and overcome similar barriers can be incredibly empowering. For those supporting men on this journey, patience and empathy are vital. Pushing too hard or expecting immediate change can backfire, reinforcing the fear of judgment. Instead, create a space where men feel comfortable sharing at their own pace. This might mean starting with small gestures, like acknowledging their efforts or listening without offering solutions. Encouraging self-reflection, perhaps through journaling or talking to a trusted friend, can also help men explore their emotions privately before sharing them more openly. Let's take the story of Liam, a man who redefined masculinity by embracing his emotions. Growing up, Liam was taught that being a real man meant being tough, self-reliant, and emotionless. He carried this mindset into adulthood, priding himself on his ability to push through challenges without showing weakness. But beneath the surface, Liam felt isolated and disconnected from his partner, Ava, who often expressed frustration with his emotional distance. After a heated argument one evening, Ava told Liam that she didn't need him to have all the answers, she just needed him to let her in. Her words stayed with him, and for the first time, Liam began to question the beliefs he'd held for so long. He decided to explore what vulnerability might look like for him. It wasn't easy. At first, even admitting that he felt anxious or overwhelmed felt foreign and uncomfortable. Liam started small, sharing moments of stress from work with Ava instead of brushing them off. To his surprise, her response wasn't judgment, it was understanding. The more he opened up, the more connected they became. Encouraged by this change, Liam began reading about emotional intelligence and speaking to a therapist. Through these efforts, he realized that embracing his emotions didn't make him less of a man. It made him a more authentic version of himself. Over time, Liam's willingness to confront his internal and external barriers transformed his relationship with Ava and deepened his connection with himself. He discovered that vulnerability didn't mean losing control. It meant taking control of his emotional narrative instead of letting societal expectations define it. Liam's story is a powerful reminder that overcoming emotional barriers isn't about erasing fear or shame. It's about moving forward despite them. It's a process that takes courage, patience, and a commitment to growth. For men, breaking through these barriers not only enhances their relationships but also unlocks a deeper sense of self-awareness and fulfillment. Embracing emotional openness is an act of strength and resilience. By identifying and challenging the beliefs that hold them back, men can redefine what it means to be strong. And with the support of empathetic partners, friends, and communities, they can create a life where vulnerability isn't a liability. It's a foundation for connection and growth. If you're enjoying this audiobook so far, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. That means a lot to us. Now let's get back to it. Chapter 8. Navigating emotional conflicts with men. Conflict is a natural part of any relationship, but how it's handled can either strengthen or weaken the emotional connection between partners. Men often process and react to conflict differently than women, which can lead to misunderstandings and frustration on both sides. Understanding these differences and learning strategies to navigate disagreements while maintaining emotional trust is essential for building stronger, healthier relationships. When faced with conflict, many men instinctively retreat. This isn't necessarily because they don't care or want to avoid the issue. It's often a way to manage overwhelming emotions. Men are generally conditioned to prioritize control and problem solving, and conflict can feel like a situation where they risk losing both. Instead of diving into emotional discussions, they may withdraw to process their thoughts privately before re-engaging. While this reaction can be misunderstood as indifference, it's often a defense mechanism rooted in the need for clarity and composure. In contrast, women often prefer to address conflict immediately, seeing it as an opportunity to resolve issues and reconnect emotionally. This mismatch in timing can escalate tension, with one partner pushing for resolution and the other pulling back to regroup. Recognizing this dynamic is key to navigating conflict without damaging the emotional bond. Timing and tone play a crucial role in how men respond during disagreements. Approaching a man with accusations or in the heat of anger can trigger defensiveness, making resolution harder to achieve. Instead, choosing a moment when emotions are calmer and framing concerns in a non-confrontational way can create a more receptive atmosphere. For example, saying, "I feel hurt when we don't talk through things," is likely to be received better than, "You never listen to me." Another important consideration is how men perceive the intent behind words. Many men interpret criticism, even when unintentional, as a challenge to their competence or worth. This perception can lead to defensiveness or withdrawal, even if the issue at hand is minor. Reassuring your partner that the goal is to work together rather than assign blame helps maintain trust during difficult conversations. Strategies for resolving disagreements while preserving emotional connection include focusing on collaboration rather than competition. Frame the conflict as a shared challenge rather than a battle to be won. Using "we" language, such as, "How can we work through this?" reinforces the idea that you're a team working toward a common goal. Active listening is another critical skill. Allowing your partner to share their perspective without interrupting or dismissing their feelings helps them feel valued and understood, even in moments of tension. Another effective strategy is practicing empathy, which involves trying to see the situation from your partner's point of view. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say, but acknowledging their emotions and perspective can go a long way in diffusing conflict. Simple phrases like, "I can see why you'd feel that way," or "That must have been frustrating for you," can open the door to a more constructive conversation. Let's look at the story of Sarah and Ben, a couple who learned to navigate emotional conflicts without losing trust. Sarah was someone who liked to address issues head-on, while Ben preferred to take time to think before engaging in discussions. This difference often led to frustration on both sides. Sarah felt like Ben was avoiding her, and Ben felt overwhelmed by Sarah's need to resolve conflicts immediately. One evening, after a disagreement about finances, their usual dynamic played out. Sarah wanted to talk right away, but Ben became quiet and withdrawn. Instead of pushing him as she usually did, Sarah decided to give him space. Later that evening, Ben approached her and said, "I needed time to think about what you said, and I understand why you're upset." This shift in approach was a turning point for them. They agreed to establish a cooling-off period during arguments, giving Ben time to process while reassuring Sarah that they would address the issue later. They also began using "I" statements to express their feelings without assigning blame. For example, instead of saying, "You never communicate," Sarah would say, "I feel disconnected when we don't talk through things." Over time, these small changes transformed their relationship. By respecting each other's needs and working together to find common ground, they built a framework for resolving conflicts while maintaining trust and emotional connection. Sarah and Ben's story demonstrates that navigating emotional conflicts isn't about avoiding disagreements. It's about handling them in a way that strengthens the relationship. By understanding each other's communication styles, respecting boundaries, and focusing on collaboration, they turned moments of tension into opportunities for growth. For those navigating conflicts with men, patience and empathy are essential. Understand that men's reactions to conflict aren't about shutting you out, they're often about managing their own emotions in a way that feels safe. By approaching disagreements with care and intentionality, you can create an environment where both partners feel heard, respected, and supported. Conflict doesn't have to erode trust or connection. When handled thoughtfully, it can be a catalyst for deeper understanding and stronger bonds. The key is to approach disagreements with the goal of resolution, not victory, and to remember that every conflict is an opportunity to grow closer rather than drift apart. Chapter 9. Supporting men's emotional well-being. Men's emotional well-being is a cornerstone of their overall health and happiness, yet it's often overlooked or deprioritized. Societal norms have long downplayed the importance of men's mental health, perpetuating the idea that strength means pushing through difficulties without seeking help. However, neglecting emotional well-being can lead to long-term consequences, from strained relationships to physical health problems. Supporting men in this area requires recognizing the importance of self-care, addressing signs of emotional distress, and encouraging healthy outlets for emotional expression. Mental health and self-care are critical components of emotional well-being. While self-care is often associated with physical routines like exercise or sleep, it also includes mental and emotional practices that promote balance and resilience. For men, practicing self-care might mean setting boundaries at work, taking time to relax without guilt, or engaging in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Encouraging men to view self-care as a necessary part of their lives, rather than a luxury or sign of weakness, can help them build habits that support long-term emotional health. Recognizing the signs of emotional distress is the first step in providing meaningful support. Emotional distress can manifest in a variety of ways, some of which are subtle. Common signs include irritability, withdrawal from loved ones, changes in appetite or sleep, and a lack of interest in previously enjoyed activities. Physical symptoms, such as headaches, tension, or chronic fatigue, can also signal underlying emotional struggles. Men may not always verbalize their feelings, so paying attention to these cues is essential. Approaching a man who appears to be struggling requires sensitivity. It's important to avoid framing the conversation in a way that feels accusatory or overwhelming. Instead of saying, "You seem really off lately. What's wrong?" Try something more supportive, like, "I've noticed you've seemed a little down recently. I just want you to know I'm here if you need to talk." This approach creates an opening for dialogue without adding pressure. Encouraging healthy outlets for emotional expression is another powerful way to support men's well-being. Hobbies and activities that engage the mind and body can provide an outlet for stress and a space to process emotions. For some men, this might mean creative pursuits like painting, writing, or playing music. For others, physical activities like hiking, cycling, or martial arts offer both a mental release and a sense of accomplishment. The key is to find activities that resonate with their interests and allow them to unwind without judgment. Therapy is another invaluable tool for emotional expression and growth. Despite lingering stigmas, therapy provides men with a safe, confidential space to explore their emotions, identify patterns, and develop healthier coping strategies. Encouraging men to view therapy as a form of personal development, rather than a response to failure, can help normalize the idea of seeking professional help. Sharing stories of others who have benefited from therapy can also make the concept more approachable. Friendships are an often underestimated source of emotional support. While men may have strong social networks, these relationships don't always include space for emotional discussions. Encouraging men to deepen their connections with trusted friends can provide a crucial outlet for sharing feelings and gaining perspective. Even casual conversations about life's challenges can be profoundly impactful when built on mutual trust and understanding. To illustrate the transformative power of prioritizing emotional well-being, let's consider the story of Marcus. Marcus was a successful professional, respected by his peers and admired for his work ethic. But beneath his confident exterior, he was struggling. The pressures of his job, combined with unresolved personal issues, left him feeling anxious and disconnected. Marcus ignored the signs of distress, convincing himself that he could handle everything on his own. Over time, the strain began to affect his relationships. He became irritable with his partner, distant from his friends, and less engaged in his hobbies. One day, after an emotional outburst during a minor disagreement, his partner gently suggested that he consider therapy. At first, Marcus resisted, feeling that admitting he needed help was a sign of weakness. But after weeks of reflection, he decided to give it a try. Therapy was a turning point for Marcus. It gave him a space to unpack his feelings without fear of judgment and helped him identify the underlying causes of his stress. He began to see that his need to appear invulnerable was holding him back from authentic connections with others. With his therapist's guidance, Marcus started implementing small changes in his daily routine. He carved out time for journaling, joined a local cycling club, and reconnected with an old friend who shared his passion for photography. These efforts had a profound impact. Marcus felt more balanced, more in tune with his emotions, and more connected to those around him. His relationship with his partner improved as he became more open and communicative, and his newfound perspective brought a sense of purpose to his life that he hadn't felt in years. Marcus's story is a powerful reminder that prioritizing emotional well-being isn't just about addressing problems, it's about creating a life that feels fulfilling and aligned. When men take the time to care for their mental health, they not only improve their own quality of life but also strengthen their relationships and inspire those around them to do the same. Supporting men's emotional well-being is a collective effort. It involves encouraging self-care, recognizing the signs of distress, and fostering environments where vulnerability is embraced rather than stigmatized. Whether it's through hobbies, therapy, or deepened friendships, creating outlets for emotional expression can transform how men navigate their inner worlds. The path to emotional well-being is not linear, but every step, no matter how small, makes a difference. By prioritizing mental health and supporting men in their journey, we can help them build resilience, find joy, and create connections that are truly meaningful. Chapter 10. The intersection of love and emotions in men. Love and emotions are deeply intertwined, yet men often experience and express these feelings differently from what's commonly expected. While men may not always verbalize their emotions, their love runs just as deep, often revealing itself through actions, gestures, and quiet moments of connection. Understanding how men process and show love emotionally can bridge gaps in communication and bring greater harmony to relationships. For many men, love is expressed less through words and more through actions. Society often teaches men to prioritize doing over saying, which can make their emotional expressions appear understated or indirect. A man might spend hours fixing something for his partner, planning a meaningful experience, or offering support in a practical way. While these actions are driven by love, they may be misunderstood if the emotional intent behind them isn't recognized. For men, expressing love emotionally often requires stepping outside their comfort zone, especially if they've been conditioned to equate vulnerability with weakness. The balance between emotional and physical intimacy is another key aspect of how men experience love. Physical intimacy often serves as a gateway to emotional connection for men, creating a space where they feel safe and valued. While physical touch is an important expression of love, it's not the only way men seek or offer emotional intimacy. Acts of service, words of affirmation, and quality time are equally significant ways men show their love. Recognizing this balance helps create a relationship dynamic where both emotional and physical needs are met. Men also have unique ways of showing affection and commitment that may not align with traditional expectations. A man might express his love by prioritizing his partner's needs, taking responsibility in times of stress, or simply being present during difficult moments. These acts often go unnoticed or underappreciated because they don't fit conventional ideas of romance, yet they are powerful demonstrations of love. For men, commitment often means creating stability and security for their loved ones, even if those efforts aren't always verbalized. To illustrate this, let's consider the story of Jake. Jake was a thoughtful and reliable partner, but his girlfriend, Emma, often felt disconnected from him emotionally. While Jake was attentive and caring, he rarely expressed his feelings verbally. Emma craved more emotional intimacy and often wondered if Jake truly loved her or if he was just going through the motions. One evening, after Emma voiced her concerns, Jake admitted that he struggled to put his feelings into words. He explained that for him, love wasn't something he could always articulate, it was something he showed through his actions. Emma reflected on their relationship and began to notice the ways Jake had been expressing his love all along. The way he always remembered her favorite coffee order, how he fixed her car without being asked, or how he held her close when she was upset without saying a word. Determined to deepen their connection, Jake decided to work on expressing his emotions more openly. He started small, writing Emma a note about what he appreciated about her and sharing it over dinner. Encouraged by her positive response, Jake began to open up during their conversations, talking about his hopes, fears, and the little moments that made him fall in love with her. Over time, these gestures strengthened their relationship, blending Jake's actions with the emotional intimacy Emma longed for. Jake's journey highlights the importance of understanding and adapting to each other's love languages. While actions may come naturally to many men, learning to pair them with emotional expression can create a more balanced and fulfilling connection. Likewise, recognizing and appreciating the unique ways men show love fosters deeper understanding and mutual respect. Building this emotional connection requires patience and intentionality. Encourage men to share their feelings in ways that feel natural to them, whether through conversations, letters, or shared experiences. Reinforce that vulnerability is a strength and that expressing love emotionally enhances, not diminishes, their masculinity. At the same time, acknowledge and celebrate the nonverbal ways they show affection, creating a dynamic where both partners feel valued and understood. Love is not a one-size-fits-all experience. Men may express and experience it differently, but their emotions are no less profound. By embracing their unique approaches to love and encouraging emotional expression, relationships can grow stronger, more resilient, and deeply connected. True love flourishes when both partners feel seen, heard, and appreciated for who they are and how they love. Chapter 11. Teaching the next generation of emotionally aware men. Raising emotionally aware boys in a world steeped in outdated gender norms is both a challenge and an opportunity. For generations, society has perpetuated the idea that boys must be tough, stoic, and independent, equating vulnerability with weakness. These norms have shaped how men perceive and express their emotions, often stifling their ability to connect with themselves and others. Breaking this cycle starts with how we nurture and guide young boys, teaching them that emotional awareness is not just acceptable, it's essential. The journey begins with creating an environment where boys feel safe to express their emotions. Children absorb lessons about emotions not just through words but also through observation. If boys see adults, especially male role models, expressing vulnerability and handling emotions constructively, they're more likely to adopt these behaviors themselves. It's crucial for parents, caregivers, and educators to model emotional openness, showing boys that it's normal and healthy to feel and express a full range of emotions. Encouraging emotional expression in boys starts with validating their feelings. Instead of dismissing tears with phrases like, "Be a big boy," or "Don't cry," respond with empathy and understanding. Saying, "It's okay to feel sad," or "I can see this upset you. Do you want to talk about it?" teaches boys that their emotions are valid and worth exploring. This validation lays the groundwork for them to grow into men who can articulate their feelings without fear of judgment. Teaching emotional awareness also involves equipping boys with the language to describe their emotions. Many boys struggle to express what they're feeling because they simply don't have the words. Introducing emotional vocabulary early, words like frustrated, nervous, or excited, helps boys identify and communicate their inner experiences. Engaging in conversations about emotions, whether through books, movies, or real-life situations, can make this learning process both natural and impactful. Another important step is encouraging boys to embrace empathy. Helping them understand and relate to the feelings of others fosters compassion and emotional intelligence. Encourage boys to ask questions like, "How do you think they felt?" when discussing conflicts or situations. Activities like volunteering, teamwork, or even caring for a pet can nurture empathy by exposing them to different perspectives and responsibilities. Breaking the cycle of emotional suppression benefits not only individual boys but also their future relationships and the broader society. Emotionally aware men are better equipped to navigate the complexities of relationships, communicate effectively, and resolve conflicts constructively. They become partners, friends, and leaders who inspire trust and connection, creating a ripple effect that strengthens families and communities. Let's look at the story of the Johnson family, who decided to shift their dynamics to prioritize emotional openness. For years, Mr. Johnson, a loving but traditional father, had encouraged his son, Ethan, to tough it out when challenges arose. Ethan admired his father but often felt pressured to hide his emotions, even when he was struggling. After a family tragedy, Mrs. Johnson noticed that Ethan was withdrawing more than usual and suggested they take a different approach to handling emotions as a family. Mrs. Johnson began by modeling emotional openness herself, sharing her feelings about the loss and encouraging the family to do the same. She started family meetings where everyone could talk about their highs and lows from the week, fostering a safe space for expression. At first, Ethan was reluctant, but seeing his father open up about his own struggles had a profound impact. Mr. Johnson admitted that he'd grown up believing that showing emotions was weak, but he now realized the strength it took to share. This shift didn't happen overnight, but over time, Ethan began to participate. He started talking about his fears and frustrations, learning that expressing his emotions didn't make him less capable, it made him feel supported and understood. The family dynamic transformed, with deeper connections and mutual understanding replacing old patterns of silence and stoicism. Ethan's journey highlights the power of teaching emotional awareness early. By fostering an environment where feelings were normalized and valued, the Johnsons broke the cycle of emotional suppression, creating a legacy of openness for future generations. Supporting boys in becoming emotionally aware requires patience and intentionality. It's about creating opportunities for them to explore their feelings, providing tools to express themselves, and reinforcing that vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness. These lessons don't just prepare boys for healthier relationships, they equip them to navigate the challenges of life with resilience and authenticity. The impact of raising emotionally aware boys extends far beyond their individual lives. They grow into men who challenge harmful stereotypes, inspire others to embrace vulnerability, and contribute to a culture where emotional expression is celebrated. By teaching the next generation to value their emotions, we not only change their future but also shape a world where emotional connection and understanding are the norm, not the exception. As we wrap up this audiobook, it's clear that the journey to understanding men's emotional lives is as transformative as it is necessary. Throughout this guide, we've explored the nuances of how men experience, process, and express their emotions, breaking down the barriers that often stand in the way of connection. The key lessons here are not just about identifying patterns, they're about fostering deeper relationships, building trust, and creating a foundation for emotional growth that benefits everyone involved. We began by understanding the emotional blueprint of men and the powerful influence of societal expectations, upbringing, and cultural norms. These factors shape not only how men express their emotions but also how they perceive themselves in the context of vulnerability and strength. Recognizing these influences helps us approach men with empathy, seeing beyond their actions to the emotions that drive them. Communication has been another cornerstone of this guide. Learning how to talk to men about emotions without overwhelming them, practicing active listening, and decoding nonverbal cues are skills that foster emotional connection. These moments of understanding, even in conflict, pave the way for stronger, more resilient relationships. Timing, tone, and empathy matter in every interaction, creating an environment where men feel safe to open up. We've also delved into the importance of supporting men's mental health and emotional well-being, recognizing that self-care and seeking help are acts of courage, not weakness. Encouraging healthy outlets for emotional expression, whether through hobbies, therapy, or friendships, empowers men to navigate life's challenges with resilience and balance. Breaking generational cycles of emotional suppression is another critical theme. Teaching the next generation of boys to embrace their emotions and redefine masculinity is an investment in the future of relationships and society as a whole. When boys grow up understanding that vulnerability is a strength, they become men who build healthier, more fulfilling connections. The stories woven throughout this guide highlight the transformative power of emotional awareness. Men like Jake, who learned to express love through vulnerability, or Marcus, who prioritized his mental health and changed his life, remind us that emotional growth is possible at any stage. These journeys are proof that taking action, no matter how small, can lead to profound change. Now it's time to take these lessons and put them into action. Understanding men's emotions isn't a one-time effort, it's an ongoing commitment to empathy, patience, and growth. Whether it's in your relationships, your family, or your community, every step you take toward supporting emotional awareness makes a difference. Encourage open conversations, celebrate vulnerability, and model the behaviors you wish to see. Change doesn't happen overnight, but with consistent effort, it creates ripples that touch every aspect of life. Emotional awareness isn't just about avoiding conflict or managing challenges, it's about building deeper, more meaningful connections. It's about creating spaces where men feel valued for who they are, not just what they provide. When men feel seen, heard, and supported, they can show up as their authentic selves, bringing their full emotional depth to relationships. As we close, remember that the journey to understanding men's emotions isn't about perfection. It's about progress, small, intentional steps that lead to lasting change. The tools and insights you've gained here are not just for the men in your life but for yourself as well. Emotional awareness enriches every connection, fostering love, trust, and mutual respect. So take the next step. Whether it's starting a conversation, practicing patience, or simply being present, your actions matter. Together, we can create a world where emotional connection is celebrated and relationships are built on the foundation of understanding and care. You have the power to inspire change, not just in others but in yourself. Let's build deeper, more fulfilling connections, one emotion at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this audiobook valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Take care and see you on the next one.